Thank you. I will go through some stuff on developing things and then talk about some best practices. I feel like there's a lot of information out there, so I want to really address not necessarily so much Zoho product stuff, but a lot of just things to consider because obviously AI in the organization is a big deal. But naturally, before we start, we have a question for everybody. Does anybody know the answer to how many developers it takes to screw in a light bulb? The answer is zero because it's a hardware problem. Ha 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 ha. All right, now we're all in a good mood. Okay, I'll do a quick pulse check on a couple questions. Every track is different, hard to tell, so I'll at least try to explain things based on what you guys kind of say. What are my questions? Yeah. Are anybody actually building things in the Zoho ecosystem right now? Like, by building, I don't mean like configuring existing products, but like using any of the developer tools to like build stuff, custom stuff. How many people in your organization, or how many people have like custom apps running in their organization um, that are good, probably that are bad, um, not necessarily made in Zoho, but just have some like proprietary software in your work? Probably a good chunk, right? Those of you that have zero proprietary software in your organization, you got to pick it up. It's you're not in a good spot. I'm not gonna lie to you. Uh, in the past like 10 years or so with like the tech boom overall, there's been an influx of an insane amount of software for every industry of every niche. There's like 1,000 marketing apps and 1,000 CRMs and 1,000 whatever that focus on a lot of different things. Um, but if you're using the same tools that everybody else has access to, then your competitive advantage is kind of not necessarily there. Depends on how well you're using them, how well you've configured them, stuff like that make a difference. But at the end of the day, you're still limited by the tool. So some level of bespoke custom applications, processes are going to be the X factor for any organization, really. Uh, at the organization itself, how many people here, instead of asking this question, how many people have a dedicated IT team at their organization? Probably a good chunk, right? How many people here are that IT team? Okay. And then I'd imagine the rest tell the IT team what you want, and then the IT team probably doesn't deliver, is probably how it works. Yes. Okay. And then I'd imagine here we're probably not the most technical audience, right? A lot of business people. How many people are like coders, develop things, builders? All right. And the rest are paper pushers, Excel, PowerPoint junkies. Yes. Uh, okay. That's fine. Not a big deal. It's actually that skill of being able to articulate things, especially as like a business analyst, that's going to become one of the most valuable skills going forward with kind of AI and development and where things are kind of evolving to. So we call about the digital transformation imperative. I think digital transformation is a buzzword that's been running around for the better part of like 10 years. There's this dream that you'll never have paper processes in your company. You'll never have these like email back and forth, but instead everything will be digitized, automated, organized, clean data. That's the dream, right? Yes. And nobody has that. Yes. All right. And so there's a couple ways we kind of address these things. Some is around really all of digital transformation. You got to build some stuff, automate some stuff, integrate is really big, connecting other applications, third party vendors, homegrown legacy systems, whatever it is. But it all comes down to innovation really at the end of the day. And today, kind of like what I mentioned, uh, IT resources are generally constrained. Does anybody have an IT team that is just like got nothing to do and like is just free? Right? That doesn't exist. Uh, and so because their resources are constrained, you kind of got to make do, which is why bad processes, things that live in Excel sheets, kind of end up becoming commonplace because you can't really rely on IT to build a good scalable solution. And even if you do, part of like what Mahesh's session was around like project planning and execution. Sometimes, how do I put this nicely? Sometimes you explain to somebody what you want and then they make something, but it sucks or it doesn't do exactly what you want it to, right? Whose fault is that? The person who built it or your fault for not explaining it properly? My fault or their fault? Builder's fault or requester's fault? How many people think it's the builder's fault? Oh man. How many people think it's the requester's fault? Y'all are nice people. Oh, all right. Yeah, both. It's everybody's fault. Yeah, because it's a lack of synergy between the two teams and really understanding things. Uh, yeah, that becomes a big problem. I'll address that a little bit later. And I think really, the complexity of integration requirements becomes really big too. I talked a little bit about the thousands of CRMs and marketing apps and business process apps or whatever it is Integrating them all together is a nightmare. Every product has different limitations, different APIs, different accessibility, different ways they organize data, different date formats. It's just a headache of getting information connected overall, which makes it harder and more difficult to really build these integrations. And without the integrations, then you're doing a lot of copying and pasting or manual work to just send stuff back and forth. Nobody likes that. So really, I would say probably for the past 10-ish years, mostly for the past 5-ish years, the idea of like low code has become like a really big thing. I think low code is a terrible word. It used to mean something, and now it's kind of just been bastardized a little bit, where like everyone and their mom says that they're like a low code platform. And well, now everybody says they're AI powered, but there was a phase where everyone was saying that they're like low code. Really, most software in general kind of falls in one of these three buckets. I like this slide a lot because it talks about the trade-offs, which is extremely important in any time of custom development, is picking the right tool and knowing what level of control or what level of speed you ultimately want. And so no code is what most point products are. It just means dragging and dropping stuff, probably some visual workflow builder. You're limited by the functionality, but the advantage is speed. You're able to build things very quickly. You can't really get granular customization, but you get what you want pretty fast, and it's kind of quick and dirty, gets the job done for probably a lot of use cases. If your no code functionality hits a roadblock or what we generally call like a glass ceiling, you can see what you want to get done, but you just can't get it done in that product. Ultimately, you need something that has some like low code functionality. Low code just means we can add a little bit of scripting, have a little bit more control. This is really around like where Zoho's like deluge language comes in handy. Deluge is the data enriched language for the universal grid environment. Uh, it is the worst name you could have came up with, but it was ahead of its time. But anyway, it's a low-code scripting language. It is ultimately probably the most important thing to learn in the Zoho ecosystem, especially as you use more and more products. It's where all of these workflows fire off. Whenever a point-and-click workflow is not capable of doing what you want it to do, you're going to need a deluge script to do some kind of a math. Maybe you want to have like intelligent round robin system in CRM. Maybe you want to have some kind of additional insights whenever a desk ticket comes in. Maybe you want to have something whenever invoice comes in books. You want to send it somewhere or do something with it. It's all generally around some custom function that's written in Deluge. So super important because it offers that last mile flexibility that the point and click workflows were not able to do. The last thing, pro code. Pro code is like traditionally full stack development. You're building everything from the ground up. Your database, your authentication, your scaling, whatever. There's things in between that blur the lines between no code and low code and pro code, whatever. It's a spectrum. It's not like individual boxes. Uh, the personas, more or less, can be blurry as well. Citizen developers are generally considered to be what I call like Excel junkies. You're good at Excel. You understand how like data and tables and stuff like that work. You're good with formulas and things like that. But maybe when it gets to actual programming, it seems a little like intimidating and you're not really aware to get started. Usually I call these people, you probably dabbled in like a Code Academy class for like JavaScript or Python and you probably got halfway through it or maybe even the full way. But if someone told you to build something, you have no idea what to do. Like you sat through the course, you learned, but you didn't really learn. Uh, so curious, knowledgeable, closest to the problem, very good people to build things, especially in the age of AI. Professional developers, more around like IT teams, right? They're a little bit disconnected from the ground business reality of like whatever problems are happening, maybe the nuances of a process that sometimes like the back of your hand because you're in the weeds every day, but to write it down in a requirements doc is a little difficult. It goes back to like if something doesn't get built the way you want it to, why is that the case? Sometimes you just know things intuitively in your head, but being able to write all those things down, not the easiest thing because you kind of just take it for granted. Uh, and so pro tools generally use low code, but they can use any tool. It's just picking the right tool for the job. And the last thing at the bottom, you can kind of tell, I mentioned productivity, speed of development varies. Less control, faster you can build things. More control, slower it's going to take, but you do get, uh, you can make it look exactly like you want it to, do the workflow you want to do. All that kind of stuff is just easier. So this is just really important for like development landscape in general. Most tools, software, everything is going to fall on some level of a spectrum here. IDC, everybody has to believe because I don't know, it's like a fancy name research company. They say a billion apps are going to be made by 2028. Uh, Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. Nobody ever really fact checks these guys. So whatever, we'll take their word for it. But the key is if you want to be able to build a billion apps in basically 3 years, there's only one way to do it is to democratize development. basically means you need more developers in the world to be able to build more things. Otherwise, the same number of developers cannot possibly build a billion apps. It's just the numbers don't make sense. So that means providing building capabilities to those citizen developers and people who traditionally would not be either inspired to or feel like they're capable or have access to developer tools that let them take control of like automating and organizing whatever business process that they're intimately familiar with. So for most organizations, I call it mature organizations. I know technically we're in like this enterprise track, and enterprise is a word that's like means a lot of things to a lot of different people. Uh, Generally, when it comes to like IT custom development in an organization, I look at it more like let's call it technical maturity of an organization rather than the size. I've seen 5-person companies that are extremely tech forward, building things, wanting to automate everything from day one. And I've seen 10,000 people companies that are stuck in the Stone Ages like the Amish, just completely have no idea what's going on. Paper, pen, barely a spreadsheet. I've seen Lotus Notes last year, so things are still cooking. But mature organizations are always looking forward. And ultimately, uh, these like when you're looking forward, the bigger you get, the more risk averse you have to be. So you're not able to do like innovation as much. You just have to basically hedge a bunch of, I don't know, like suits and lawyers and compliance people and like whatever buzzkills in the organization telling you no, that you can't do things all the time. But when you're in this like growing stage, you can be a little bit more aggressive. And that's really what jumps people out of like, I would say like emerging mid market kind of a company to actually being like upper mid market on the borderline of like true enterprise. Uh, for low code, really, I talked about being able to build faster. You get that control, but you also get the extensibility with some level of coding. Uh, Reduce technical barriers to entry. Again, democratizing development, giving access to build stuff to people who normally don't build stuff. Uh, Business IT collaboration. No more pointing fingers at people of who did something right. Ideally, you want to be able to build something yourself, maybe build it to like 50, 75% of it is exactly what you want. And then it's like, hey, I really want this functionality and I can't figure out how to do it. So then the IT comes in, and rather than having to build the entire thing, they're just going to come in and fix that last 10, 20% of like whatever needs to get done. And the last thing is ultimately resource optimization. You want to automate and organize the information as best you can. And so low code's been around for quite a while. I would say generally it starts as like drag and drop interfaces, more on the spectrum of no code. Eventually kind of becomes a little bit more complicated. Most people thought of low code as kind of like dinky toy apps that are not like serious or scalable or mission critical. But as development kind of improved, we get these like development environments, controls, production, testing, all these kinds of things come out a little bit more. Now we have like essentially enterprise grade platforms that have a bunch of governance and administrative features because, as you can imagine, if you let everyone in the organization run around and build things, um, it'll be like the inmates are running the asylum. A lot of people will build good things. More people will build bad things. You have no idea about like data compliance or integrations or whatever. If whatever bad things can happen, people will generally do. And eventually, you'll have like AI and assisted development thing. So right now, we're kind of on the cusp of the current state, and tomorrow, a lot of these like capable platforms are being AI infused by adding functionality to make it easier to build things, easier to uh, visualize like processes and optimize them based on usage or activity, and suggest changes to make the application or solution work even better. So there's generally a big synergy, I guess, good enterprise word, synergy, between low code and AI. And I kind of put it in a couple different buckets. So talked a lot about accelerating development. I cannot stress this enough. Just being able to build things as quickly as possible and get off the ground is really just a godsend, because a big problem with building things from scratch, a custom solution of any kind, is often like the blank slate problem or the blank page problem, right? You gotta just get started and it's tough. You don't really know, do I start with a database? Do I need to figure out my permissions first? Do I need to figure out my data model first? Do I figure out my workflows and process and draw like a flow chart? Where do you really beginning? Then you want to have really good interfaces. I think the bar for UI and UX for customers and users of anything has just gotten high. People don't like things that look ugly or are not intuitive or not mobile friendly or whatever it is. And then ultimately, you need something that's going to keep getting better autonomously. So there's a couple ways this happens. One is around code generation. I'll talk about this a little bit later. But as you can imagine, people are not very good at writing code. They don't like writing code. So we want to generate code for you. There's stuff for that. Process optimizations, that just means like monitoring a process you have in place, keeping track of how is it going, are there bottlenecks. Let's say you have like an order management system and you have like a warehouse, and in the warehouse, I don't know, Jim takes 3 days to process an order on average over the month, but everyone else in the warehouse takes 1 day. You wouldn't normally be able to do that. You don't want to write a workflow that says, keep track of everyone's processing times and let me know like what the report is. So you need some like ambient intelligence that's going to tell you if there's any anomalies or areas of improvement or whatever happening. So that's like these automated process optimizations. And then analytics, big thing. The analytics track next door. We'll talk all about how you get a bunch of data. You really want to get a lot of insights from it, and really predictive insights so you can make changes and decisions for the future. I will get into like a little bit more product stuff, so it might be a little bit more interesting than talking. Generally, I'd put most AI capabilities in like these developer tools in kind of two categories. They sound similar, but they're obviously different. Building apps intelligently and building intelligent apps. Building apps intelligently means the foundation and the blocks for getting the solution to where it needs to be is quicker, easier, more intuitive, stuff like that. Building intelligent apps means once you've had something that's been built, is that a smart app? Does it have any kind of, again, process optimization, user guidance, maybe documentation gets generated automatically for you? Is there like added benefits for this app existing as it is, but just getting smarter over time? Now, productivity ultimately happens through like abstraction. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of, let's say, building our first application. I would always say that, so in the keynote, you'll see, we talked, or Roger showed a little bit about like, I generalize it as typing in a box and something gets created. Yes, that's probably the gist of like what most people kind of, I would say, equate a lot of AI and LLM tools to be. You type in a box, maybe a picture gets created, maybe an outline, maybe like whatever document, presentation, audio, video, whatever. It's all about typing in a box and getting what you want. How many people have typed into, let's say, an LLM box and gotten exactly the perfect answer they wanted, 100%, zero changes? Everybody just knows you type in a box, you're going to get probably 80, 90%. And then you're like, ugh, I just think I'd make a couple more tweaks. And then you're like 8 prompts down the line and you tell it to like stop making up numbers and like hallucinating like percentages. Uh, I tried to make AI do this presentation and it said like something like 96% of organizations do X, Y, and Z. I could have put it up there. Y'all would have believed it, but I had a little bit of a conscience, so I didn't. Um, but my point is that a lot of tools in current like AI space is around this like type in a box, create. Whether it's in CRM, you can type in a box and make a custom module. In here, I'll show you about typing in a box and make an application. In other products, you might be able to type in a box and create a workflow. But it's never going to be 100% perfect, but it is that jumping point to kind of get things rolling for you and kind of inspire a little creativity and just avoid like that blank page problem again. So I'll talk about kind of what we talk about, not necessarily building a production ready application from a prompt, but more about the MVP or the jumping point off from a prompt. Uh, and so whenever you're prompting, there's always information you want to provide, some kind of context, right? That context could be a single prompt. It could be some kind of a document that you may have, like a requirements document. It could be a flow chart or a process diagram. It could even be voice if for some reason you feel more comfortable talking. Uh, I don't know how many people actually use it, but it's there. Because the voice just becomes text anyway. So whatever. Anyways, you have some source data. We're gonna model it all out, created a couple different components, create some workflows and stuff like that, and then ultimately have like a user management aspect as well. So I'll walk through a couple short videos in the product and kind of explain how this whole thing kind of goes down. I will pause along the way so I can explain what's going on. So here we're gonna go ahead and make an application, and we're gonna do this thing called create using Zia. So when you create using Zia, it's going to let you type in a box. Uh, First, you got to configure your LLM. I think Rod, you talked about it yesterday, but right now we have our own Zoho models that do app creation, and then you connect with OpenAI. There's a whole AI bridge coming where like you'll connect more uh, different LLMs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. But you can connect whatever uh, either or choose whichever one of these you want to do. If you use OpenAI, you have to pay for like their API key. Naturally, we're not paying for that for you. Or if you use the Zoho one, that one's free. Uh, and so you kind of just configure however you want to. Let this thing run through real quick and upload whatever document you want. So here, there's some kind of a spreadsheet or a process diagram. Let's say someone is registering for an event. If it's approved, something's happening. So we've got like a whatever. It's easier to draw this out than configure something in the product itself. And we're gonna open that and type in the box and say, just make something simple. Create something that's gonna manage the registrations, include approval, I guess accommodation needs assessment, and some confirmation emails. Not too crazy. Uh, Once you type into this box, or in any box for that matter, makes a big deal, right? I feel like everyone's probably heard of like prompt engineering. Yes, yes. They said that that was going to be like the future job of everybody, and then they stopped talking about it. I don't. Uh, a little hack I would say is oftentimes when you have any product, not just a Zoho product, but whatever it is that's using some sort of type in a box, connect to an LLM, create something. Generally, what I'll tend to do is go to the LLM directly, whatever my preference is. If you're using OpenAI or I don't know, Gemini or whatever you're using, type in that box and say, I want to do this. Give me the best prompt possible in order to get the outcome that I want. Then it'll fix your terrible prompt and make it a lot better, organized. It'll set like the context and like the objectives and whatever, and then use that prompt. So the prompt engineering job they said was going to take over is actually taken over by the AI to do the prompt engineering for you. Funny how that works. But definitely do that. Most people would just type in here whatever they think off the top of their head. And if you're just not putting any thought into the application you want to create and the prompt you're providing it, you're not going to get a good output, right? Uh, planning and yeah, planning what you do to get started is extremely important. And so I don't see a lot of people put a lot of effort here, but it is pretty important. So you typed in the box, things get created, and now the next thing that happens is we identify a couple of use cases. So based on that little diagram that got uploaded and a little bit of text of registering for the event, keeping track of accommodation stuff, approval workflow, some confirmation email dispatch, you can see all these things kind of automatically came through. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. It depends. And so if they're good or bad, you can generate new ones if it's missing something and you want to say, hey, like what are some like adjacent use cases that I didn't think of that probably might relate to the scenario, right? And the other one would be to add a custom one. I don't want you to guess what it is or generate something from scratch. It's like, oh, actually, I forgot. I want to do, I don't know, like sending a thank you email or something like that. I forgot that functionality. I don't want to generate that functionality. I just want to add a custom and say add a functionality to send thank you emails or something along those lines. Then what happens is we have different or entire like database model that gets created. This first one is connected automatically to our CRM, so you kind of see CRM connected at the top there, and the other one is data that lives within this custom app. It's a little hard to see. I'll stop right here. You can see these small little lines that connect these things. I don't know how visible it is from the back, but it just shows the relationships between different pieces of information. Okay, so the key is whatever we have here, sometimes it works for you, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't work for you, you want to be able to make modifications and have that be the foundation for the application. For any product you make or any solution, the data model is ultimately like the foundation of everything. If that data is not organized well, if it's not related to other things well, then whenever you want to get reporting or you want to automate something and have related information come in, it's going to become very difficult for you. That's why most people skim over this and start just adding forms and tables and relationships willy nilly. But having a good plan here makes a world of difference. Oh yeah, the CRM connection automatically done. Maybe you want it stored in the CRM, maybe you don't. In this case, it already knew that I had analysts in my CRM, so it pulled it automatically. And now it's going to go ahead and start creating things. Uh, so it's going to start making a couple different components. Most applications of any kind, complex, simple, whatever it is, has the foundations. Forms are like your data model, your tables of information. Reports are how we're going to visualize stuff. Dashboards is going to be a combination of actions, buttons, inputs, reports, whatever it is, and then the general overall layout. So each one of these components get made one by one. We kind of just want to walk somebody through the process. Generally, it takes, I'd say, like 30 to 60 seconds to build the whole thing out. And after the components are created, we do user permissions. So it automatically knew that based on this analyst approval at an event example, there'd be some people who are registering, there's some kind of an approver, probably a coordinator involved, and then somebody who must be doing bookings for flights and hotels and stuff like that. So those permissions were automatically created. Each one of those permission sets will have different access controls to like which tables of information they can see, whose data they can access, which fields of information they can see. Maybe they don't want to see people's birthdays or email addresses, personal information. We can like it'll automatically identify that stuff and mask it all as well. Man, this thing is moving. Yeah. There you go. All right. And the last thing is a blueprint. Does everybody know what a blueprint is? In the Zoho world blueprint, not like a house blueprint or a building blueprint, right? Like the Zoho blueprint. Yes? Anybody not know what a blueprint is? Kinda. All right. Thank you for raising your hand. So a blueprint's like a way to kind of like a flow diagram, you'll have like a starting point, and then you'll say event needs to be created, and it creates like a little chart. I think on the right hand side, it'll actually make a little. Nope, it didn't go very fast. I'll show it to you in a second. You can see on the right hand side, that's kind of like the business process getting created here. Uh, and so it'll make that automatically for you. And the last thing is some level of workflows. We're gonna wanna make some workflows for validating the registration, updating. Man, this thing moves so fast. There you go. Updating some kind of accommodations, the confirmation email we talked about, and maybe an event reminder, whatever. Some workflows got created. We're gonna walk through the whole thing that got created. So after all those different components got created, the dashboard is kind of generated right off the bat. We can see dummy data is added automatically. Uh, Without dummy data, we started without dummy data, and then you realize that you get an application that has the entire structure, the skeleton is there. But if you don't see data, then the dashboard would just be empty, and you would be like, well, this kind of sucks. So you need some kind of dummy data in there. Uh, you can always delete it all and then add your own, obviously. On the left-hand side, you can see the different components. So here we've got like a report of all the people that registered, the dummy data, different types of reports, Kanban reports that you can easily drag and drop like different registration statuses on, the calendar, as you can imagine, that shows people, I guess, I don't know, conference schedule probably is what's going on here. Then we'll edit the application. If I go into the workflows, I'll be able to see the different workflows that were automatically created. Inside each one of these, it's going to be actually like deluge code that is generated. And it actually gives you the comments because most people don't ever make comments. And if we just put the code, you might not understand what it's actually doing. So we have the comments in there. It does it all automatically for you. And it's really just a good way to learn. If you don't really know what's going on, if you've never coded before, it might look super scary, but with the comments in there, you kind of see step by step what's actually happening, and then you can just copy paste that and use it somewhere else in whatever use case you kind of want it to do. Then the last thing I'll show here probably is, yeah, some automated schedules for workflows, and then these blueprints that I was talking about earlier. So this approval blueprint will show me the start point, and there you go. Yeah, so we're going to start. The registration gets submitted. It's either submitted for approval or declined right off the bat. When it's under review, again, it can be approved or different steps can happen. And ultimately, they all kind of funnel down to that completed or needs more information or decline stage, right? So this entire thing gets created automatically. If you, again, any of these components that are created, it's just the starting point. If you want to make changes to them that the AI got wrong or whatever, you can just modify. But if you had to make this from scratch, it would probably be just a little bit annoying because you're starting from scratch. You don't really know exactly what you want. But once you see an example, everyone can criticize about how to make something better, but not a lot of people can make things from scratch, right? So the key with a lot of this like MVP building is once this entire thing gets created, maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't, maybe 80%, whatever it is, you need to refine it. And that refinement can happen in a couple different ways. Like I said, you can make changes to anything that was built automatically. So that's the manual refinement, going in there, pointing and clicking, writing script yourself, just kind of getting in the weeds on it. Or there'll be prompting to create new components automatically. So just like you prompted to make the application, now if you want to prompt to create a form or something like that, we can easily do so. And then there'll be suggested actions. So I'll talk not really on the manual side because I guess nobody cares about doing manual work anymore. But in the form side, you can again use Zia, click in there and say, let's add a new functionality like feedback and ratings after the event is over. It'll make the form automatically, and then it'll say, you know what, here's a couple suggestions. You probably should have added something like satisfaction percent or something else, feedback type, a drop down. It'll just keep suggesting additional fields that might be valuable to use in the context of the entire application, as well as in the context of that specific form. Then if you want to do a little bit more AI work, there's a couple different smart fields, I would say. Sentiment analysis. Whenever someone submits, feedback, like in the surveys after every session you guys have been doing religiously, it'll tell us if you liked it or not. If you say you didn't like it, we just won't invite you next year. And you can use that as whatever workflow trigger you really want. Then the last piece, which I think ultimately is probably where most people care the most, is around actual code generation, right? Has anybody used ChatGPT or another like public LLM to try to generate like deluge code? And has anybody wanted to blow their brains out? Yes. Yeah. Uh, so as you can imagine, that was a big problem for us. And so we had to create our own thing. And so now we have this code generation strictly on Deluge, no hallucinations in the sense of like other languages getting mixed and matched inside, uh, and provides a lot of value. So we're going to see some code generation. And if I go into the workflow tab, we're going to make a new one here. And in the new one, we'll just give it a name of something. I don't even know what's happening here. There you go. So whenever a new event is selected, we're going to figure out how much capacity that event has. On the right-hand side, there'll be like a little Ask Zia button up there, and we get this little box. The box is our friend. Again, people type very bad things in the box here. So I highly recommend you almost go to somewhere else, ask it for a good prompt, and then come back here with that good prompt. Uh, it doesn't hurt. It's just called like double checking your work. So here, when the event slots are full, show an alert message and do some actions or whatever, right? You click send, it's going to generate all that code for you, again, with the comments, so you can really see what's right, what's wrong, did it do exactly what you want to do. I'm not going to go through all the deluge here, but ultimately what's happening is it's going and getting all the details about the record. It's finding out how many available slots there are. If the available slots is less than or equal to 0, it's going to show an alert that says everything is booked. And the else condition just means that we're going to calculate the remaining slots and then show like a little box that is red, I guess, and it'll say, hey, there's this many slots available. Pretty simple. Might be scary at first, especially without the comments, but once you get the comments in there, it all kind of makes sense, right? So code got generated. Another thing that happens pretty often, and oh no, not schedule. So what's going on here? Most people's code probably looks like this. Yes? Oh shit, 10 minutes. Right? Most people's code looks like this with no comments. What if you could just highlight the code and say, make comments? That'd be nice, right? I don't think it's, most times when you write something yourself, you know what you're doing and you probably don't need the comments. But as any good developer does, you probably are stealing a lot of content from forums or support people emails. Like you're not actually writing the code, you're copying and pasting, right? And praying that the changes you made work. Yes. So what happens is like if you look on our forums, there's very nice people that always reply with like code snippets and stuff here and there. You take that code snippet, copy paste it, dump it in here, say comment it till it makes sense, and now you have like a good code snippet rather than a lazy one. So the commenting super helpful if you don't know what you're doing. I'll run through the last slides. It's kind of it on the product side of things. But ultimately, a lot of people thought AI is going to like replace these developers and everything's going to be autonomous. But really, it's going to just empower the developers and business users alike to build things that they normally weren't able to build and then build them faster on top of that. Uh, Most functionalities in the AI space, I kind of put them in these four buckets: generate, refine, interpret, and evolve. I showed a lot about generation, creating an application, creating a component, refinement, making suggestions to something that was already built, like those fields that get automatically suggested for you. Interpreting data, I didn't go into too much in depth. It's a lot of the analytics side of things in that track, but being able to analyze and predict information, and ultimately just the constant evolution of whatever solution was built. Whenever you build something from scratch, I don't ever like to think of it as complete. It's always a work in progress. There's always some refinements and some enhancements that can happen. Sometimes to a detriment, but for the most part, always get better. Last thing I'll hit on real quick is kind of just general information on kind of strategies for these capabilities. Most of the time, I'll tell people if you don't really know what you're doing, obviously start with the AI assisted guidance. Sometimes, as you get super experienced in things, you will find it that using the AI feature to generate code is actually slower than just writing it yourself. That's the goal, right? You're going back to that hard work, but at least it'll be the jumpstart for getting things started. Quality assurance, that means you have to know what's happening. If that code gets generated and you don't know how to interpret the code, like read it and understand what's going on, and you blindly trust it, you're going to be in a world of pain. So you got to make sure that you have some kind of quality assurance behind it. And then ultimately, ideally, evolve to predictive capabilities and then autonomous operations, which is around like Agent Studio and stuff that Roger talked about. Ultimately, these development teams, they become a little bit more fusion based, I would say, where that business and IT connection happens a little bit closer. Citizen developers with AI assistant can kind of build things and get started very quickly. Professional devs can use these things to build faster and what do you call it? Maybe a little bit more standardized compared to personal coding practices. Business analysts, like I mentioned, are the most valuable because they're the people that can actually articulate what you want and prompt well and articulate and write things down and make it make sense. And then the actual act of generating things is not the hard part. The act of articulating what you want is the hard part, right? So the value kind of goes away from professional developers and more towards business analysts. And ultimately, the IT teams that were kind of sitting on their butts, they will just end up being administrators or governors. You got to make sure that whatever is getting built is actually compliant, is working well, is not being abused, uh, doesn't have information it's not supposed to have, stuff like that. So your path ultimately start small, high impact, low complexity use cases. I always focus on this. Whenever you're getting started building something of any case, people want to think of custom app in the organization. When I asked earlier, as some like mission critical, super important. We run our entire thing on this like custom stack, and that's our bread and butter. Uh, Not every custom solution has to be super mission critical. Sometimes they're just small, fun projects that make you more productive and make your, I guess, life suck a little bit more with like a bad process. Uh, Good foundations. This is a big one that people don't really talk about, but planning your business around not being, let's say, like AI ready or about being AI ready in the future. A lot of businesses don't have good documentation, don't have good processes, don't have good data standards. Maybe not today, or maybe today it's doable, but it's not like the easiest thing in the world. But fast forward 6 months or a year, it'll become even easier, even easier. We'll introduce capabilities to train like a private model on all of your company's information that's only accessible to you, that you can use and query and ask it questions. But if you don't have any good data and you don't have processes well defined, then that feature is going to be kind of useless to you. So I would say, like, even if you feel like the technology is kind of there, but you're not able to take advantage of it today, it'll become easier to take advantage of it. But you need the data and the organized information in order to leverage it tomorrow or 6 months or a year in the future. The other pieces on scaling and evolving, sure, yeah, whatever. Uh, Preparing organization, uh, digital fluency is a big thing. Every day I'm still surprised. I mean, I guess at Zoho, most of us are kind of like nerds, so we're like in the AI space and like really like following things pretty aggressively. But everyone should find a way to be digitally fluent going forward, right? These AI tools are obviously going to be infused at every aspect, from like sending emails to booking appointments to, I don't know, looking things up on maps. Everywhere you see AI is getting infused some way, shape, or form. So you want to be a little bit fluent and not just like taking advantage of that functionality, but kind of understanding how it works so you can take advantage of it the best way that works for you. And then data practices, I want to stress on again, make sure that you work on starting to document things as best as possible in order to make sure that like it can get trained on, be valuable for you in the future. Continuous learning kind of goes to digital fluency. Uh, you guys are all at this event. You can go back to your company and like spread the good word of like, we need to learn more, we're behind, or uh, these are new trends we got to pick up on. But constantly learning is going to be, just good in life, I think. Balance innovation with governance is kind of important. Don't let the suits tell you no. Sometimes you kind of just gotta like ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So a lot of these things are just like cutting edge. Nobody really knows how they work. So push the boundaries, test things out, even if it might not be allowed in the workplace. Maybe try it in your personal, whatever side capacity. And then if it works and you have like a good MVP, then you can say, hey, look, this works over here. Can we try it at work now? I like proven that it works. Uh, this is my probably main point I'll end, and not really in Zoe's best interest, but definitely don't limit yourself to like anything that just we do. We talk a lot about AI. Every vendor talks about AI. The problem is the AI market will get fragmented pretty heavily. What I mean by fragmented, I think this is what I mean by fragmented. So this is a what they call a marketscape of all of the AI different tools in the market today. Uh, Basically, you have like infrastructure, you have automation, you have data sources, data refinement, application creation, image generation, whatever it is, all sorts of different categories. You can tell this is very fragmented. Yeah, hieroglyphic sounds right. And so, what I mean by this is like Zoho will offer a lot of AI functionalities baked into a lot of our products. Like I showed, we can make an application, from this prompt or whatever. But if you only think about taking advantage of the tools that we offer and not using things on the outside. Like when I mentioned, getting your prompts pre-checked or kind of prompt drafted by a third party, LLM that's public, and then coming back and using it here. That combination of those two tools is actually going to make you way more productive than only trusting the tool that that single vendor gives you. Uh, this is a harsh reality, but I'm sure most people should be aware of this. We don't really care that much about you as an individual, as a vendor. Uh, a lot of the AI tools and functionalities and features we come up with, it's to address an extremely mass market. It is not for, Sally's pool store to like be productive in like pool manufacturing. That's not like what we're building for. We make things that have a generic appeal, and we hope that people can customize, extend, and leverage for the best of their ability. Your priorities are a little bit different. Don't rely on us to deliver the solution to you. Sometimes we might give you the foundation or a piece here and there, but nowadays there's so many tools out there. Clearly, a lot of tools out there, hard to navigate. I put the website at the bottom here. The website's actually not bad, mad.firstmark.com. And basically, like, this thing is like interactive, and you can click on every vendor and learn about what they do. But it's a good way to discover these tools because there's obviously a lot that you have no idea what they are. Slides will get emailed to you too, so don't worry about the picture. Yeah. I mean, if you took a picture of this, like the most blurry thing in the world, right? Like you're not even getting any quality here. Anyways, so yeah, we're gonna make stuff that works for a broad audience. You guys' best interest is to worry about what works best for your organization. So take what we give you in any feature functionality. see if there's some adjacent connected, standalone AI service that might empower it, make it better, or even do better than we do. We're not saying we're the best at everything. Some people are ahead in different areas. That's okay. But you got to look out for you. We got to look out for us. And I mean, just call a spade a spade. You should understand that and make decisions accordingly. Uh, if you do choose to rely on us solely, great, risky, but great. There are financial impacts. I think of like the general AI market right now to be like everybody remember the good old days of like Ubers being like $7, yes, and now Ubers are like $37, yes. I just read yesterday that Uber announced they're doing buses, so they're really kind of making full circle. Uh, but uh, what do you call? My point is that the cost of everything we see, these $20 a month ChatGPT Plus subscriptions, Zoho offering it for free, or maybe Microsoft charging X or Google charging Y or whatever it is, these are all very, very subsidized prices we're seeing right now. No one real, I wouldn't say no one really knows. We know the cost of compute, capital investment. What is uh, something that we should be capitally investing on in terms of like data centers and GPUs and all that kind of stuff, or should we just leverage a third party tool and pay the API fee and do it that way? There's a lot of considerations there, but the big issue here is that like lock in, especially on the financial aspect, you got to make sure that whatever you build, you're in control of. We don't talk about it too much, I don't think, but like we make our own data centers, our own servers, our own app servers, software, like full stack we create ourselves because we relied on somebody else. Then if they raise their prices on anything, we got to pass that price on somewhere to you. Same way with AI, because everything's subsidized right now. You want to make sure that like this is the cheapest it's going to get. It's only going to get more expensive. So if you only ride with the one single person, you're going to be at the whim of like if that company is going to pivot or might even go out of business or get acquired and not do exactly what you want to do. So just be very wary of kind of like single vendor lock in. Uh, I guess a couple like takeaway points before I get kicked off. Uh, Definitely super important. You got to be. I mean, everyone's talking about AI right now. It can seem like you're drinking from a fire hose, but being curious, being aware, figuring out what's new and trending, and most importantly, like I said, the business analysts who are able to translate that new functionality or new technology into like how it can work in the business is going to be the most valuable tool. You might not actually know how to build it, but at least if you can articulate what you're looking for, eventually the AI will go and either build it for you or point you in the direction of like which tools you can leverage to get that solution that you want. And really, low code plus AI delivers that like speed, intelligence, and ability to work pretty quickly. Uh, yeah, sure. You need some preparation. I talked about that already. Opportunity is yours. Sure, go take it. Just like run out of the room, start building whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.